Talk about the Lakers. When the Lakers tip tonight, their postseason plans are on the line. They've won their last 4, including a game without their leader, Kobe Bryant. Stepping up are the two bigs, and Mike D'Antoni admits Pau and Dwight are better together than apart.
I realize, that, we can play with the two big guys. I was a little skeptical at first, and mainly because Dwight wasn't 100%, neither was Pau. And so you look at it and go, I don't know, but I think with both of them being close to 100%, yeah, they can play together easily.
So he was a little skeptical, and now he realizes that they can play together. Stephen A., you've been saying this since they hired D'Antoni. He needs to learn how to play the two bigs together. Should he have just now admitted this?
Well, I'm going to applaud him for his honesty and his candor. I appreciate that. We don't want somebody that's going to lie, and we don't want somebody that's exhibiting such a level of timidity that they really have absolutely nothing to say. But at the same time, that doesn't make the content of his comments any less ridiculous or just inexplicable. How is it that you walk through the door, you're supposed to be looking to play them together? I understand he couched his statement by saying neither of them were 100% healthy. And I get that. I totally understand where he's coming from on that level. But Pau Gasol is a career 18.9 rebound per game player with 51% shooting from the field. And oh, by the way, a 2-time world champion. This is somebody that got benched 3 days into the job by Mike D'Antoni. 3 days. Mike D'Antoni started on a Tuesday, and then after that he benched Pau Gasol on a Friday. And if you remember, Skip Bayless, not only did he bench him on that Friday, it was against his brother in Memphis, not to mention the fact that D'Antoni was incredibly dismissive. He didn't bring up anything about injuries at that time. He didn't bring up anything about how one's healthy, one's not, and they they can't play them together. He was saying, hey, he's not producing. I'm going to go with people who produce. I don't think this works for me. And then in the same breath, he was talking about how he wouldn't bench Dwight Howard when people were asking him about that because of Dwight Howard's horrific free throw shooting at that particular time. And what was the reason? Because Dwight Howard was the franchise player. So you basically have said, Dwight's the franchise, Pau Gasol is somebody that I don't think works for me, and you didn't bring up anything about injury, and it was so dismissive of Pau Gasol that it took everybody back, and everybody saying, what's going on here? Why would you be so dismissive and disrespectful, publicly I might add, about Pau Gasol? So now here he comes, approaching the last game of the season, and he's saying what? Oh, all of those comments were due to injuries? Oh, that's news to us, because that's certainly not something that we heard Mike D'Antoni saying throughout this season when he seemed to begrudgingly want to play them together. So I don't really want to hear that. I'm not buying it, but it is nice to know that finally he realizes that they do need to play together now that Kobe's out, Nash is out, and he has no choice. I guess we can all reach our epiphanies whenever it's necessary. What do you want me to say?
I want you to say, how will it affect the team right now? Because my gut feeling is this will be music to the ears of the locker room, especially to Gasol. I think it helps the spirit of the team going into a huge make-your-playoff kind of a game tonight. So, Stephen A., I'm going to throw this back to you. My first thought was, wow, that took a lot of guts to swallow your pride from a whole long year's worth of defending yourself and suddenly admitting before the final game of the year, I made a huge mistake here. And yet, then I thought, Stephen A., this came across to me like more of a premeditated confession, like he had thought about this. How did it hit you? What do you think the why of this is? Because it looked like he had thought about it, that he had looked before he leaped into making this confession.
Well, it's a couple of things. Number one, I think it was premeditated. I think you're right on the money with that. I think it was that way because, number one, he has no choice but to rely on those two because that's the only chance they have of winning anything in the playoffs. That's number one. Number two, I think it's premeditated to some degree because Mike D'Antoni is aware of the fact that a lot of people in Laker Nation do not believe he's the right man for the job, and there's going to be immense pressure on the Lakers organization and Jim Buss in particular to get rid of him once this offseason arrives. Now, Mike D'Antoni, for those who don't know him, he's an incredibly nice man. He knows how to coach the game of basketball offensively. Defensively, it's not that he didn't know as much, it's that he didn't care for so many years. Just didn't care. Didn't want to do anything to compromise the tempo and the flow of an offense. And I'm going to say it again, and I'm going to tell you this little story, Skip. Years ago, when Jim Jackson was traded to the Phoenix Suns, obviously if somebody turns over the ball and you're seeing somebody break away for a layup, what do? You go to them and you foul them, okay? Well, Jim Jackson fouled a player on that particular night after getting traded to the Phoenix Suns. And Mike D'Antoni said, come here, I want to talk to you. We don't do that. Let him score. It keeps the tempo going, keeps the flow of the game going, doesn't interrupt it. Now, that boggles any coach's mind because you don't give up layups, you don't give up points, you don't give up scores. But that's what happened many years ago when Mike D'Antoni was in Phoenix, okay? So defense was never really a priority. The biggest thing, however, that's been an impediment to Mike D'Antoni's progress is that the man is stubborn as a mule. Again, he's a nice guy, but he is stubborn. And now he's gotten to the point where he's gotten a bit sensitive because he left Phoenix, he went to New York, couldn't take that heat, and now here he is in L.A. again, and there's some questions about him, can't seem to take that heat. Got attitude with everybody. Anybody with the Lakers organization who whispers a negative word about him, he's a bit sensitive to that. He's certainly sensitive to what I say, along with a few others, but that's not the D'Antoni that was in Phoenix. But he's always been stubborn. Now he's stubborn and sensitive, so all of those things contribute to what you're seeing right now as it pertains to him saying what he said and doing a mea culpa, so to speak.
Okay, I'm going to go cut deeper here. I could be wrong about this, but I'm going to guess that the two people above Mike D'Antoni, the two people who put this team together before Mike D'Antoni got there, and the two who hired him, and I'm talking about Jim Buss and Mitch Kupchak, the owner, quote unquote, and the general manager. And here's the issue, Stephen A. I'm going to guess that they encouraged him to make this public confession, in part to help save his job, and in part to help motivate and energize the basketball team that's been kind of deadheaded for the longest time, as we know. But my question has been from the start, these two guys picked Mike D'Antoni. Now, it was on the fly. It was under duress. We know about the whole dalliance with Phil. They danced with him for a night. Then we're not sure what happened. You've gone on and on about that. But don't you think that even for a moment they said, hey, Mike, how would you coach our roster? And don't you think for a moment that he was up front and said, well, you can't play the two bigs together? Don't you think they knew this before they hired him? Surely they had some sort of philosophical discussion of the roster with Mike D'Antoni. Well, so has he defied them all year long? Why did they hire him in the first place, knowing this is the way he was going to coach it? The two bigs cannot play together.
Well, first of all, I think Mike D'Antoni has proven to be an absolutely sensational salesman. You're in Phoenix. You don't have to do but so much because you're winning an average of 58 wins. But how did you position yourself to get that job? That's question number one. You go to New York. You beat out Mark Jackson for that job. We see the job he's doing in Golden State. That's point number two. Number three, Phil Jackson is at home. His fiancée is the sister of the man running the show and the daughter of the late, great Dr. Jerry Buss. He's an 11-time champion, beloved by Laker Nation, desperately coveted in terms of his return. They go meet with him in his home, tell him he's got until Monday to make the decision, then backdoor him by coming up with D'Antoni on a Sunday afternoon, okay? So you've got to ask yourself how that happened. Clearly, some salesmanship was involved as it pertains to Mike D'Antoni because he's very, very good at selling what he sells. Listen, I sat down and interviewed the guy sitting right next to Donnie Walsh. When Donnie Walsh was running the Knicks, Donnie Walsh hired him. And this man sat right in front of my face and told me that Eddie Curry was going to run. Eddie Curry. Skip Bayless. The Eddie Curry, the big Eddie Curry. You know what I'm talking about. Yeah. Let's just be nice enough to say, I know. You don't think running and Eddie Curry in the same sentence.
You're not going to go to Jabba the Hutt here, are you? No, that's Jamarcus.
No, I'm not going to do that
Okay,
to him.
okay.
I'm not going to do that.
Right.
I like Eddie Curry. He's a nice guy. But you just don't associate running with Eddie Curry. You don't associate bicycling with Eddie Curry. You don't associate moving with Eddie Curry, at least not in recent memory.
Okay.
Yet, these are the kind of things that D'Antoni was saying. So he's good at selling himself,
do
his
you
vision,
think-
etc.
Did he pull the wool over their eyes about playing the two bigs together? Did he avoid that? Did he mislead them?
I think he pulled the wool over their eye in this respect. They obviously are going to entertain moving Pau Gasol because he's approaching the last year of his deal next season, giving them about $19.2 million. But obviously, you were going to have to deal with him for the time being. And I think that where the proverbial wool being pulled over anybody's eyes, specifically pertains to him saying, oh, I can deal with this and I can make this work for as long as you need me to. I don't think that he hid the fact that obviously he's not the kind of guy that's looking to slow the game down and throw it into the bigs and play that kind of methodical basketball. He didn't do something like that. But I do believe he gave them the impression that he could make this work for as long as they needed him to buy them time in order to make the changes that they wanted to make. They didn't expect it to be this big of a problem.
Got it.
All right, so look, we have both of them playing tonight. Let's talk about the Lakers.